The uneven bonds between these pairs of molecule groups cause the layers to rotate slightly as they stack, making the double helix of the DNA molecule, the substance that transmits genetic information in living things. Each coil is a backbone of sugar and phosphate molecules. The information-bearing nucleotides are protected within the coils. A single strand of human DNA, coiled like this, can be 50 million times longer than it is wide. The continuous coiling of the helix relates it to another form commonly found in nature, the meander. A river loops across the landscape according to a predictable pattern of smooth elliptical meanders, shapes created by the force of flowing water. These curves are made by the way the river erodes its own banks. The water flows faster on the outside of the bends, slower on the inside. A cross-section through the river shows the action of the water. Where it's faster, erosion is greater, so it's deeper on the outside of the bend to the left. Shallow and slower on the inside to the right, so sediment is deposited there. On the outside, erosion eats the land away. On the inside, land is built up. This makes the riverbed change course over time. Rivers seldom flow in a straight line for more than 10 times their width. Instead, they automatically make patterns which approach uniform curvature. Water flowing across a car windshield will do the same thing, but for a different reason. When the speed and the volume of this water flow are reduced, it begins to oscillate as the flow becomes faster on one side than the other, creating a meander. Water flowing across a beach at low tide forms many meandering patterns. And so do the linear ridges in this glacier, slowly moving below Alaska's Mount McKinley. There is another group of growth patterns. It is in the way the branches grow from a tree. It's also in the way florets radiate from a clover blossom, and in the way networks of vessels grow in animals or in leaves. The branching system is best understood if it's seen from the beginning. When this sunflower seed senses the right combination of heat, moisture, and light, it germinates. When plants grow, they show the development of a simple branching system. First, the roots. The young plants are sensitive to the force of gravity. It guides them toward a vertical position. Their roots can find the way to water, and their leaves the direction of the sun. Sources of food and energy attract branches. Leaves develop an internal branching pattern for distributing nutrients. And groups of leaves form variations on branching patterns. Flowers make radiating patterns as they reach out to attract pollinating insects. As a plant gets bigger, it continues to do what it did as a seedling. It grows branches. A mature tree is a work of natural architecture and engineering. This tree has tens of thousands of leaves and must grow a massive armature of wood to support them. The leaves themselves have branching systems that collect the sun's energy and through photosynthesis produce food for the tree. Since the wooden structure must be strong enough to withstand the elements, trees have ways of branching that are ingenious solutions to structural problems.
A lot for making furniture. This is a black oak, and if you look up at the branches, you'll see what we call a habit, the branching pattern of the tree. Some trees branch very low to the ground, and the other ones will wait until they get up higher and branch.
Branches must support their own weight as well as their leaves. Wood is heavy, so to lessen the stress on the tree, the less used, the better. This is a diagram of evenly spread leaves. There are many ways for the leaves to be joined to the trunk. An explosion pattern. A double explosion pattern. Bilateral symmetry. Branches made of forks or three-way joints. How do these four patterns work as models for some common hardwood trees like oaks or maples? In this explosion pattern, each leaf would have its own branch, and the combined length of them all would be long. A lot of wood for a tree to support, so not economical as a tree design. But if these branches are the florets of a buttonbush flower, the scheme works pretty well. It presents a dense array of tiny flowers to attract pollinating insects. For clover, it's a way of attracting attention. For the seed case of the cocklebur, it's a way of deploying hundreds of clinging barbs. A double explosion pattern reduces the overall length of the branches, but still a lot of heavy wood to be supported far from the trunk, especially if the limbs get overloaded with snow. But for wild parsnip, this design distributes small blossoms over a large area, possibly making them more noticeable to pollinating insects. Because of its small size, the scheme doesn't strain this plant, as it would a much larger tree. A close relative, Queen Anne's lace, uses the same structure. The goat's beard flower makes an explosion pattern of seeds. Each seed has a secondary explosion pattern for a parachute. If the main branches have the same number of minor branches evenly arranged on each side, the overall amount of wood is even less, a favorable savings in material and a branching pattern used on some trees. You can see it in the profile of many evergreen trees, in the organization of their individual branches, and in the way the needles grow from them. This fern is made of rows of minor branches. Each of these is made of rows of leaves, and each of these is made of rows of veins. The smaller parts of this fern are models of the whole. In this branching pattern, each limb is made of forks, linked three-way joints. The overall length of the branches is the lowest of all four models. This means the least weight to be carried and the shortest distance for fluid to travel from the roots to the leaves. A single limb on a maple tree is a series of three-way joints. A branching system using this pattern is common to many of the hardwood trees of North America. This tree grows in a pattern with the shortest root between the main trunk and each leaf, and it uses the least amount of wood. It's an economical structure, and it withstands both gravity and the climate. Like all things in nature, there is room for variety. Not all trees appear to use the same structure.